WESWES show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 135 Footy Show. Since it's the end of the footy season, they did the Daily M and all the positions and Player of the Year. We thought it would be good to do a NRL all-time team. Well, we didn't really do an all-time team. We did it from 98 onwards because that was like after Super League and the ARL. And I don't know about STACEY, but I didn't really, like, I started following about 94, so I didn't really know, like, King Wally and all those other guys too well, so I didn't want to, pick players I didn't really know too much about. So this is from, like, 98, which I followed, like, all the way up till now, pretty much. And the criteria that I got it from a guy, an article, doing a bit of research for this, Ryan O'Connell, so from The Raw. He said, I thought it was pretty cool, what he said. This is essentially a team of players in their prime of any, or in their career. So he said that aliens have landed on Earth and it's a challenge to us to the game of rugby league. The winner gets the prize of keeping the planet. It's therefore important to remember that this isn't a team selected for honours, it's a team selected for the win. This means chemistry, style, and balance that matter. So, did you pick a full squad of 17, Stace?
Yep, I picked a full squad of 17 just to be sure. I wasn't sure if we were going to do full squads, but I thought I'd just have a couple of guys on standby, which made it a bit easier because there's so many guys that it's almost like who you're going to leave out. So I thought I'd better make mine 17 so I can get some of those extra close guys in as well. Did you do 17?
Yeah, 17 and a coach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good to set some criteria so we're not ruffling any feathers of like the old school league fans. And, you know, it's within a time frame and we're speaking from like what we know as well. When did you start following league?
Yeah, similar time about 94, 95 around there. That's when I started following it. So I like the idea. The NRL, I think, officially started in 1998. So that's sort of a good starting point. And I know we do have some older listeners on the 135 Footy Show. So, you know, you don't want to get those comments. Oh, what about Wally Lewis, like, as a good example? And what about this guy and that guy? There's some great players who played a bit before we started watching it. So I think doing it from the start of the NRL era is a good starting point for us to work through from there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's what I thought as well because it was when the Broncos won it and it was simply the best, Tina Turner. Yeah. That's when I sort of started following it. And then there was like greats that old Mal, Renoff. There was quite a few guys that I saw a little bit of, but I didn't really follow their whole career. I sort of just caught the back end of it. Oh, Ricky Stewart, Laurie Daly. I saw a little bit, but not a lot. So it's cool that we sort of got guys that we saw their whole career throughout. Anything else before we get into it?
No, not really. Like the criteria is quite interesting as well. So it'll be interesting to see who you go for and who I go for just to the comparison because there was some real 50-50 calls and depending on the style and all the rest of it and what you wanted to do. So I'm just really interested to hear your feedback as well and compare it to what I've come up with.
I always thought because growing up, league was everything to me. And I always thought this was fun. Then I would do it back then in school, and it would change from year to year. And I first did it just straight off the top of my head, and then I did some research. You know, I googled some, other NRL top, people who they thought was their top 17 and stuff. And then I got tricky, man. Then I started going back and forth like yourself. Then I found it really tough after then, and then my team changed quite a bit. But then I had to sort of settle on my 17. I guess that's like what coaches selectors do. But I thought we'd start fullback and then work our way through.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah. So this one, like, I was trying to look for someone different. When I looked into it, I ended up picking Billy Slater, which I think most people would have picked, and he was like the number one pick that I saw online. But I picked him because I thought he was always around the ball, always keen for an inside ball, chasing on the kicks. He obviously like the record with the Origin, some big plays. But he reminded me of like an old school footy player, just keen to get involved. Like he was sort of forced the issue. And then he won this this thing in Aussie. I can't remember what it was called, but they had a bunch of other athletes like cricket and different sports, and they had like a fitness challenge sort of thing. And that was sort of the icing on the cake for me when I wasn't quite sure, because I sort of had Anthony Minicello, Brett Stewart. Those are sort of the top three guys that I had in there. But I chose Billy because all those league stuff he won. They won 4 championships, but 2 got waived. But I thought his just work ethic, fit, fast, and then he won that challenge as well. He beat the cricket. I remember Andrew Simons was in there, one of the Australian cricketers, but he smoked all the other guys, and he's just a true athlete. I think he probably could have even done CrossFit and done pretty well. But I got Billy Slater. What about you?
Yeah, interesting because this was hard when you look at the criteria when you talk about guys at their absolute peak. Like in terms of career, Billy Slater is easily the best, but there were guys who had higher peaks, so that sort of threw me off a bit. And I came up with some similar names to what you had. I thought Jared Hayne, there was a period, I think 2009, where he won like 6 man of the match games in a row. So I thought that peak was really, really high. But yeah, I've sort of got a bit of a strategy as well. So I've also gone for Billy Slater. Yeah, just when I think of the great teams of recent times of the NRL era, you think of Melbourne from 2006 onwards, and I also think of the Queensland team that won 8 in a row. And I'm going to sort of foreshadow some of my other selections, but both of those teams were built around that big three of Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, and Billy Slater. So I know just as a New South Wales fan, I'd be pulling my hair out watching and just yelling at the TV. And those big three at Melbourne would just do their storm moves for Queensland, and it would always work. They were just so well drilled, and they played so much together. They could just run it with absolute precision. They had like almost telepathic abilities, so to understand each other's play, it was just too hard to stop. So I do think there are fullbacks that had higher ceilings in a one-off game, but yeah, Slater just his natural ability, and yeah, and in that one-off game, those proven combinations sort of will get the nod for me. So yeah, Slater, he's the fullback that I've gone for as well.
Yeah, like his energy. He was just like an annoying guy. Like they, when you play, like you sort of want them to settle, but they just keep working. They just keep working. Um, Number two. So we got the winger. This one was hard. The other winger was number five. Was quite easy for me, but the other one I went back and forward. But I thought I had Lottie Takiri. Lottie Takiri. I thought his first couple of years before he went to rugby was pretty dynamic, and then when he came back and played for the Tigers and the Rabbitohs, I thought he'd be rubbish, but he still had it. He's obviously lost a bit of quickness and speed, but he's still doing the job. But not, but yeah, his highest peak, I think. Remember Dada Nibuda? He played for the Blues, the winger.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Like he didn't play like him, but I think he had like that certain sort of thing where he could speed and evasion to get through. Similar sort of thing in the league.
yeah.
Different game, but for me, he had that type of feel.
Oh, nice, nice. I didn't think of Takiria, but that's a good pick. Yeah, I quite like that one actually. I've gone for someone a bit more recent. I've gone for Brian To'o. Just playing for the Panthers. He's had an outstanding year this year, and also like I've gone for Slater at the back, similar to you, and for all his gifts, and he's amazing. He's still a smallish guy, so you need to get those sets off to a good start, and you want to have someone in the back three who can just run up and take that pressure off the forwards. And To'o, albeit on a smallish sample size, basically one outstanding season or 1.5 seasons if you count last year. Now he's probably one of the best meter eating outside backs we've seen in the NRL. So now they talk to some of the forwards, and normally what happens is when the opposition they kick the ball downfield, the forwards try to run back to get back on side, and so they can come and do some hit ups. But the Penrith forwards they just stand and wait, and they let Brian To'o do his hard yards and just carry it back and take those tough carries. So the ability to sort of save the forwards' legs and save their energy um, is a huge part of Penrith's success. And it's not often that a winger is so critical to a team's play, but he was just so critical to Penrith and them winning the title. They talked to Cameron Smith, the great Cameron Smith himself, and he mentioned that when they played the Penrith Panthers in 2020, they identified Brian To'o as one of their key guys, and if they could sort of stop his play, and they thought they could beat him. So in that grand final 2020 that Penrith lost, he only got 114 metres, so they would contain him. And he's averaged 245 metres this year. So it's not often that a wing is so crucial, but he's that crucial to his team success. And I think that he, on the strength of, like I said, a small sample size, I think he's a critical part, particularly with Slater at the back, who I think is a small fullback. So I've gone for a bit of balance there, and I've gone for To'o on that side.
Yeah, yeah. Man, his athleticism too, the backflips he does that were shown in the highlights and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Bit of a freak.
Yeah, just hoping he can kick on because, if someone replays this podcast back in 5 years and he's only had that one outstanding season, that guy doesn't know anything, man.
Nah, I think he's all good. They got the championship. I think if they didn't get the championship, then there's always that asterisk. There's that question, but
Yeah,
he got the championship.
that's right.
To finish it off like a great season and then you lose, it's not quite the same. But because he got the championship, I think it's the icing on the cake. So I think it's a good call in terms of peaking as well, being ready. Centre, this was a tough one. I went with Justin Hodges. I went with Justin Hodges. He never
Nice.
took any crap. He's tough. I think he looked like he was running in slow motion sometimes, but he will get through. Great step both ways. Bit of a fan. Strong in defence. A bit of height about him. I like guys with a bit of height about them that can still move.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I went with old Justin Hodges.
Yeah.
Number 3.
He's got a bit of mongrel about him too. He doesn't
Yeah.
mind getting into the dirty stuff. He can do the flash stuff, and he can get down and dirty if you need to. So yeah, he was the guy who I had in, and I took him out, and I chopped and changed a little bit. So I'm not sure. My team might have a little bit of recency bias, but I've gone for Tom Trbojevic. I know he
Oh
normally
yeah,
played
yeah,
fullback. He had an outstanding season, one of the best individual seasons I've seen. But he played centre for New South Wales, and I just like the way that he plays. Another big guy, like you mentioned, you like those tall guys to diffuse those kicks, so that might come in handy with a couple of small guys in the back three that I've got. And yeah, I like the way that they played him in New South Wales, how he would sort of sweep around, and even though he was playing on, I think, right centre, he'd turn up on the left side a few times and just roaming the field. I think that could be good against these aliens,
yeah.
the aliens that they beat.
I I I always had Tom at the back, but
Yeah,
because they haven't won like the championship sort of thing. But he's definitely a freak in nature. A couple more years, but yeah, he was pretty much it was him and old Billy and yeah. Nah, it's good choice. So I think we're gonna look back and see Tommy is one of the freaks.
yeah, I
When
think
it's
so
all done,
too.
like the
Mm.
Mal Meninga, that type of thing. Because his height, his competitiveness, his speed, he's got it all there.
Yep, yep.
The other centre, this was probably like the easiest pick out of the 1 to 5, and I think for me personally was the best was Greg Inglis.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like because he played fullback, centre, wing, and it was just easy to pick him. His fin, speed, evasion, man, just hard to handle overall. Just freak of nature. So yeah, I went with Greg Inglis. That was probably my easiest pick, from 1 to 5 for sure.
yeah. We're not much debate from me. That was also an easy pick, Greg Inglis. Yeah, particularly this sort of game, these one-off games. So I think one of the criticisms of him is he wasn't a gun week in, week out, like say Slater was, who was good every week, every single game, every minute of every game. Now Greg Inglis would fade in and out, but when it came to the big games, he was always on. He was always good for Queensland. He was always good for Australia. He played awesome in that grand final. He won the Clive Churchill when they won it at Melbourne. So yeah, when it comes to the big occasions, he's one of those guys who really steps up, and it can't get any bigger than a game to to play for the whole earth. So yeah, you expect him. He'll probably be close to man of the match, I'd say, given his big game sort of style. I think yeah, that's an easy one.
When I was doing like research for this, I was watching like highlights of different players and stuff, and I was watching his man. His was probably like for me the most
Oh
impressive
yeah.
that I watched overall,
Mm.
like individual type of tries. On the wing, the other wing, this was the other wing that I felt was the easiest. That was the best winger overall. Was I had big Wendell Sailor,
Oh yeah.
and I just thought I watched him live a few times. I don't know why, but my uncle, he's the biggest Broncos fan. But he would always yell out, "Wendell, you legend," at the top of his voice. And like, because the crowd hated Wendell, but he used to just feed off it, He'd feed off it.
Mm.
And I think he got like 3 tries against the Warriors that game we went and watched. We went and watched him a couple of times, but he was one of the wingers that he could just make a break or score off a hit up.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even, like, they didn't even need to set him up. Like, some of the times he was just so strong and powerful. He had, good footwork as well, but yeah, he's one of the few wingers that I think it's a bit different now, like these days, because the defense is a bit tougher to break through. But yeah, he would just make breaks off hit ups every now and again, and low errors, decent under the high ball. Yeah, just freaking nature to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, like, whenever they do the greatest this and greatest teams and all the rest of it, Wendell Sailor's name always comes up. He's always sort of in that conversation. So to me, that was sort of another obvious one, but it wasn't. But I didn't pick him. I don't know. I probably might have got this one wrong now that I think about it when you just described it. But I went for Brett Morris, the guy, one of the twins there. Yeah, if we look from '98 onwards, Brett Morris is the top try scoring wing in the NRL era. So, there's the guy Ken Irvine who's the top try scorer ever, but that was a bit before our time. And if you just look from '98 onwards, he's the top try scoring winger, second overall to Billy Slater in that era. So similar attributes I thought to Wendell Sailor. He was quite a complete player. Not much errors. He could do the fancy finish if you need it, but he could also do those tough carries out of their deep end if they needed to do. So also good defensively. So a bit of balance. I wanted one sort of fancy finishing wing on one side and then a workhorse on the other side with Tor. So just wanted a bit more balance there. But I went Brett Morris on that one.
Yeah. He was silky, man. He was silky. Then 6. This one was tough. I went back and forward a fair bit. But I ended up going with Jonathan Thurston.
Yeah.
He's got the skills and also the passion as well. I thought he was good on defense as well. He's a bit of a low tackler. I was a bit of a low tackler. I like that style, even though it's not that good these days. People get knocked out that way. But but I still like that style. What he did with the Cowboys, I think it was pretty amazing. And he was a big part of the Queensland run as well. Just the ultimate competitor, I thought. Some of the other guys I thought were skillful and stuff like that, but just that competitiveness, he'd bring it out. The old show and go was quite magical as well, and I just thought he brought the best out of his boys because I don't think they had. I mean, they had a good team in Queensland, but I think they played above their weight. I think, and he was one of the main parts of that. So I picked Jonathan Thurston 6.
Yeah. I had Jonathan Thurston when I did it initially. He was one of the first names I wrote down, but I've changed him out. I've gone for Benji Marshall. I've gone for Benji Marshall at 6A.
The retirement got you.
Sentimental value might have got me there a bit, but no, we've got to have a New Zealander in there somewhere. So I thought, I'll give Benji Marshall a go. You think of Benji when he was younger. He had those fancy side steps, the flick passes, the no-look passes. And in a game that can have a lot of structure, I think that sort of out-of-the-box type of attack can unlock some of the best defenses. So I'll give him a bit of a free rein, and sort of my 7 will help explain why I've given him, just to relieve him of all the organisational stuff and just say, hey, look, if you see something, just go play their eyes up style. And I remember young Benji, he could do things that no one else could do. So I've gone for a bit of excitement there. And I went for Benji Marshall on that one.
Yeah, nice. And 7, being from Newcastle, man, I couldn't go past Andrew Johns. Not just because Newcastle, but I still honestly think he's the greatest player that I've seen, like, in all positions. I'd pick him over Cam Smith. And I think, man, he's just amazing, the stuff he could do, passing-wise, kicking-wise. Best kicking game ever, I think. He could, I would see him like take hit ups, when the forwards were tired, and he'd get over the advantage line. He could tackle, man. He could put a shot on here and there. Yell at his players, tell his forwards to get in there. I think he's the ultimate leader, and then just like I read his book recently. I don't know if that played into it a little bit as well, but just the time he spent into like kicking off different parts of the ball, just playing around, him and his brother, like they would get on the field. And I remember, because I'm from Newcastle, growing up, and there's a field where I'd see him, like we would drive by and he'd be down there with a bag of balls, just like practicing his kicks and stuff, and like they train, they train. So this is on his own, like outside of it. Yeah, I thought he was just a master, master halfback and competitor as well.
Yeah, yeah. He's an immortal for a reason. He's one of the he's right up there, probably the greatest player who's ever played, up there with Cameron Smith and all the rest of it. So yeah, another obvious one for me, who I had right away. I think he was the first name I wrote down, and now I've crossed it out. So I've actually, yeah, I agree with everything you said, though. I agree with everything you said. I think he's the greatest halfback who's ever played. I think he's probably the first or second, depending on who you like, best player who's ever lived. But yeah, just for my style and the way that I want the team to play, I've actually gone for Cooper Cronk. Um, yeah, so just I said I've got Benji in half. In order for him to have free reign on attack and do his no look passes and all the rest of it, I just need a seven who can take over the organizational part of the game. And I think Cronk, I think when it comes to organizing a team and running the structures and the game plan, executing a game plan, I think he's the best at that part of the game that we've seen. And yeah, I've looked. Yeah, just want to get that balance in the halves. And I talked about combinations a bit earlier. So I think that Cronk and Slater together, just because I've got Slater in there, them two together is better than picking, say, I don't know, two better players who aren't used, don't have that solid combination. So it's a
Yeah,
combination
yeah.
thing. I do think that Andrew Johns is a far superior halfback to Cooper Cronk, but just for the combination of him and Slater together, I've gone for that combination. That just gets it over the line for me. So Cooper Cronk is who I've gone for.
That's a good point. That's a good point. They're having that chemistry and getting along. I was hesitant with the Thurston thing too because they both like the ball so much in their hands, both of them.
Yeah,
But I thought it would work because when they played at Origin,
right.
Cooper and Thurston, they got along really well,
Mm.
and I thought Johnsy and Thurston would be similar. Yeah, that's the only reason I was hesitant as well because you sort of need one guy that's happy to take the back seat. They sort of like Cleary and Luai,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, Cleary sort of runs the show, and the other one sort of chimes in here and there and does their thing. Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's a good point that you brought up. That's a really good point. Having that chemistry there is there. And then in the front row, I went with number 8. I went with Adrian Morley. Adrian Morley, like
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a hits guy. Like I like defense. I like guys that can hit. Yeah, he would just do shoulder charges and and hit, like just no remorse. I love that sort of thing. Just
Mm.
charge, put the knees up a little bit here and there, and like these days it's so tactical. You need that structure and everything like that. But I think that there is a place for just having like just getting fired up and putting on a shot, putting on a shot. Revving up the boys or running and bowling someone over or
Mm.
something like that. Like not like every player, but here and there you need a guy that can be that type of enforcer. And I think Adrian Morley has that.
Yeah, nice shout on Adrian Morley. I've actually got Adrian Morley on the bench, so I think we're both in agreement because he's not someone who would normally get a lot of love on these types of lists. But I think I'm with you. I think he's bloody awesome. I've got him on my. He made the top 17 for me, but I haven't got him. I've got him on the bench as opposed to starting. And yeah, I agree with you. You got to have someone who can that enforcer, that intimidator type player who, the opposition doesn't want to run it and is a bit scared of. So put the handbrakes on and that sort of stuff. So yeah, Adrian Morley, he fits that role well, and I quite like that pick actually. Um, I've gone for the Broncos guy, Petro Sivanasiva. He's just a legend. He's been playing so long. His longevity and his motor. I think he's no nonsense front row, and that's what you need. Just someone who just tucks the ball under his arm and goes for days and days. So yeah, I've gone for Petro in the front row for me. At prop.
Nice, nice. Number 9. I was trying to look for anyone else other than Smith, but he sort of fits the role because you know you got Johnsy and Thurston, so you don't want someone who's going to overplay their hand. He's
Mm,
cool, calm,
mm,
collected. He guides the guys around. He's a good leader. Works hard on defense. So it was sort of a obvious role. I guess if I was looking for like more of an attack, if my halves weren't as attacking, and then I would have went for someone else. But I think he fits the role there really well for my team in terms of defense. And then just distributing the ball and better leadership.
Yeah, yeah, that's another easy one. Like we talked about Greg Inglis earlier, how that was a pretty obvious one. To me, this was another sort of obvious one. Cam Smith, he's in the GOAT conversation with Andrew Johns. And yeah, because I've based my team around the Melbourne Big Three, and those guys that won it for Queensland. So yeah, I'm just gonna tell those Melbourne three guys, you guys go and do your moves. So yeah, Cam Smith to go with Cronk and Slater that I got in there.
Well, but I never actually used to like Smith,
Mm.
because the Storm were always in the finals every year, and so they were one of the teams that I sort of hated,
Yeah,
and I guess I still do. But I'm not going to deny he's a great player. But like he never puts on shots.
no,
He doesn't do many like dazzling darts or anything. I was like, what's the fuss about this guy? But
yeah,
everybody that plays with him, speaks really high of him, and he makes hardly any errors as well,
mm, mm.
and he steps up in big games. And you don't want someone who's going to be up and down type of thing. So he's really consistent and stuff. But yeah, I never liked him. Man. I was like, what's the big deal with this guy? He never puts on a big hit or nothing.
yeah,
Like being a big defense guy, but
yeah,
yeah, the results speak for themselves, and
yeah.
yeah, had to
You,
chuck
you
him in there.
talked about Greg Inglis's highlights. I would love to see Cameron Smith's highlights of just passing it and hitting the guy on the chest straight away, not on the side or anything. Just really does the basics really well. I think is one thing. Yeah. So no errors and just good decision making and just doing the obvious things, the basic things really good. So yeah, something to be said about that actually.
Then the other prop I had, yeah, your guy, Petro Civoniceva. He was my favorite prop growing up. I played a bit of prop as well, so I just liked his. He was tough. Like the thing that stood out for me was when they would kick down and then the fullback would hit it up or the winger, and he would get down there and do the hard yards or even like the taps and stuff like. He would roll up his sleeves when like the other forwards wouldn't, and he was very very quiet. He just his the old thing about his actions spoke louder than words. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just really admire that. And I was at Brisbane trying to crack the Broncos, and I was in the lower thing training, and I remember looking across, and they were doing like those ice baths in the old bins, the green bins,
Yeah.
and he was in there. And because like when you watch TV when you're a kid, you sort of think props are like chubby, but man, he was chiseled. He was like man, you didn't realize because they wear like shoulder pads, some of them and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, he was jacked, and I was like, man, this guy's the man. Just workhorse, eh? So yeah, definitely at Petro. So he had that little turn used, charging into the line and using his hip and shoulder.
Mm,
Strong on defense as well, and he was consistent throughout his career.
yeah. Yeah. No, oh, it was the Broncos was one of the teams that I really disliked, but yeah, he was a guy that you had to respect and you had to admire. His record, when you look at his stuff, how many Origins he's played and how deep he played into his career, and just week in week out consistent. So probably one of the best props we've seen there. I went for Sam Burgess. No, I just like he's got that big motor, which I like. Another massive human being. I just thought at the PK there was a period where he was close to the best forward in the game. So yeah, I'd like his intimidating sort of style as well. I thought yeah, you need that sort of stuff, and he'd always look for the biggest guy on the team and try and take him on as well. I remember when the Rabbitohs played the Roosters when Sonny Bill came back, and as soon as he got the ball, he just ran straight for him. And I like that mentality where you try and that dog eat dog type stuff in the props there. So he was that guy who would always take on their biggest guy or their best guy and try and knock them out and get that psychological advantage over the opposition team. So yeah, Sam Burgess is who I went for.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Well, speaking of Sam Burgess, he's the guy I have in second row. Second row. I like the guy as well. I watched they hit they do stories on families and stuff like that. There was one time, I don't know if you saw it, but they had Sam Burgess and his brothers and his mom, and man, I was like, I had a few tears, just him and his leadership, moving over to Aussie and bringing his brothers over and his mom, and he just had a lot of mana,
Mm,
and the way he carried himself, and working with the guys at the Rabbitohs. Man, yeah, I think his leadership, and there's that moment where he's crying with his broken cheekbone, at the end of their final against who was it again? Oh, in
The
their
Bulldogs.
final, yeah, the Bulldogs. And man, it's just I've got to get that as a poster one day. Playing with it, broken cheekbone the whole game.
Mm.
I think it was the first hit up of the
The
game.
first setup. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought, yeah, I think he's a great leader. A lot of money, just like that, or like some people just have something about them
Mm.
when you're around
Yeah.
them. I think he's one of those guys. The other guys around them are going to lift, and what you're saying that no step backward type of guy. So yeah, I got Burgess in the back row.
Oh, nice. I've gone for yeah. This was another tough one. I was sort of umming and ahhing about the back row. I've gone for Nathan Hindmarsh to start off the back row. Now I've got some. Well, you see later on in some selections. I've got some fancy guys, some low minute guys as well. So just to have a no nonsense guy who will. He was an 80-minute forward. He was a workhorse, and someone's got to do that dirty grunt work while everyone's doing their fancy stuff. And he was the guy who would be like statistically, he'd be right up there for the tackle counts every week and the hit ups and that sort of stuff. And you need to have one guy who's doing that sort of no nonsense stuff. It doesn't get a lot of credit, but you've got to have someone's got to do that dirty work. And Hindmarsh was the guy that I picked to do that for my team.
Yep, nice. The other back row, I got Jason Tomolo. I think there was that peak where he played for Tonga and they won the championship. There was those few years there. He made that break against New Zealand and they scored and stuff. I think, man, his footwork is amazing. He had a bit of strong hips, strong
Mm,
legs,
mm.
hard to handle, like good acceleration and speed off the mark. And he had like footwork, like a center or something like that. Man, it's just the way he was built. And charging at the line, just a handful to stop. Quiet guy as well, but I think he'll be tough to handle out on the edge there, especially with Johnsy and Thurston giving him good ball. I think he'd be unstoppable. I think he's probably one of the hardest guys, in his peak
Yeah,
to stop. After a good wind up. Yeah.
yeah. Tom Lolo, yeah, at his peak, he was probably he's one of the best forwards we've ever seen. And look at his numbers and all the rest of it. The game has changed with these new rules, and I think the new coach is still trying to figure out how to get the best out of him these days. But yeah, I remember what he was doing his exploits for Tonga when he first switched from the Kiwis. That was such a massive loss for New Zealand because he was probably their best player at that point. And then you see how dominant he is once he switched. Then a whole host of other people thought, hey, that they might have something here if they can get one of the best forwards in the game. Maybe I should jump on as well. And that we saw a whole host of guys change their allegiance to Tonga on the back of what Jason Tomoloro did. So good job. Yeah, I've actually got him at lock because I agree with you. I think he's bloody awesome. So I went for Sonny Bill Williams.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, it was sort of a tough one because it was a smallish sample size. He was in and out of the NRL, but just the things he could do, the offload, he could do the hits, he could do all the flash stuff. I think with him and Nathan Hindmarsh doing the dirty work, and that allows him to go off and do pick and choose his moments. He had the bit of ball playing in him. He's got the big hits if he need to. He can come up with a special play at a special time. So it's unfortunate when he switched to Union. Oh, maybe not, but I thought that he was on his way to becoming one of the best forwards in the world at that point. So if he stuck it out in league and ended up being a 300 game or whatever, I think the NRL would probably look at him completely different, and he'd make a lot of these lists. But I think at his peak, when he was at the Bulldogs the first time, I thought he was amazing. So yeah, Sonny Bill Williams, I've gone for.
Yep. Yeah. Nah, he had it all there. I got him on the bench actually, but yeah, nah, he had it all. He had it all. Sonny Bull. And then even with Tom Malone, sorry, just one more. And the presence thing, I think, like, when you like line up against a team, whether it's league or rugby, you could just feel some guys, like some big guy, like, oh, even small guys, but they just have a certain presence. I think, for him to move a nation like that, and the things they've done, it's still the waves are still happening now. With Jason Tomolo. So even though he doesn't say much, I think he's quite the leader there, in terms of people getting around him and backing him, and the pull that he has type of thing. Even though he's quite a quietly spoken guy, and then to at lock, this guy, man, I went with old Freddie Fittler.
Oh, nice.
best left foot step in the game. I think he's played a little bit of centre in his early days when he was at Penrith. So because we've got the ball players already, I know he can ball play. I sort of have him like running, bit of freedom, a bit of support play, like yeah, a bit of freedom, sort of pop around. I like that old school type of lock that can ball play a little bit. He probably wouldn't need to too much, but there's the option there, especially if there's injury as well. So he can slot into six and then Thurston can go into seven or whatever, that type of thing. But yeah, I think he can sort of do it all. And he was annoying because I didn't like the Roosters either, but there was his left foot step, man. He just kept breaking it open in his timing, his passes, pretty face balls and that is pretty impeccable. So, man, he's done so much in the game. Big time player as well. So yeah, I had Freddie Fittler.
Yeah, nice. I feel really bad because I love Freddie Fittler. He's one of my favorite all time players. Um, the Roosters was probably my second team. I'm a Warriors guy, but the Roosters they always had heaps of New South Wales guys and heaps of New Zealanders. So I'd always give them a second look just for that reason. That my other rep teams that I go for, and Freddie, yeah, at the peak of his powers, he was bloody awesome. And him and Andrew Johns had those battles between who was the best player in the
Yeah,
game
yeah,
at that
yeah.
point. So there was always must watch TV. I feel bad that I couldn't find a spot for him, but yeah, I had Jason Tomolo. I should have done some creative thinking. I was trying to think how can I get him in there, and I wanted just to get some. I wanted Marshall in there, but yeah, Freddie, that's a great
Oh,
choice. So Tomolo, I went for lock.
oh.
We talked about.
When I was watching, I was doing, looking up some stuff from Freddie, and there was a tackle he did on Meninga. In his early days, coming cover tackle, he made a big break, chopped him down early. No, he was only young, man, so he's big. He was a big time player from early days. I think he made I think they won the championship or something. He got rookie of the year, then he got player of the year. Oh no, don't quote me on that. But he made a lot of rep teams like early on, and then even later on in his career, he was still carving up. So I think he's just a big time player overall.
Yeah, just a real natural footballer because, like you mentioned, he started off, I think, playing centre. They had some other guy
Yeah.
at Penrith when he was his younger days at Penrith. He was playing 5'8" back then, so they picked him at centre, and he won. He was two-time Dalian Centre of the Year for them,
Right, that's right.
and
Yeah.
then he went and played 5'8" for the Roosters, and he won all these awards. Then they got Andrew Walker. Andrew Walker came in, and they had to find a spot for him, so he played 5'8", and that's when Freddie started playing a bit of lock, and he was winning awards
Yeah.
as a lock as well. So he's just one of those guys. You just got to chuck him on there, give him a jersey, and let him go.
Yeah.
Away. He's been awesome in nearly every position he's played. So good shout there on Freddie.
And then on the bench, sort of went with the origin. You need a utility guy, and I thought this guy was big time. Old Jared Hayne, the Hayne plane.
Nice.
I thought he could pretty much cover the whole back line,
Mm.
speed. So that's sort of like my one back utility guy. That grubber down the sideline for New South Wales. Quite a few big games. He's got the swagger and confidence. Like he could make a mistake but still come back and make the game-winning play. Yeah. So any injuries or if the game's a bit tied up, I'll chuck him in there somewhere. Let him have a crack. But yeah, he can cover the whole back line.
Yep. Nice. Yeah. Hayne, I've had him in my team, out of my team, trying to find a spot for him as well. It's just one of those things when you end up with your team and you think, shucks, there's so many good players that got left out. So I couldn't find a spot for him. And again, I've done similar to you. I've gone for a utility. So I think 14 is almost like a position in itself. I went for Sean Berrigan.
Whoa, the speed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I liked his utility value just because I want someone similar to what you mentioned for Hayne. He could play anywhere in the back line. I wanted someone who could cover a whole heap of positions. So yeah, Sean Berrigan, he made his origin debut in 2002 and he played 5'8". And then 2003 he played halfback for Queensland. 2004 he was playing centre for Queensland. And then
research,
yeah,
research.
he was the Dalian top try scorer at centre in 2005. And then he won the Clive Churchill Medal for the Broncos as the best player in the grand final in 2006, playing hooker. So he's played every position and he's played at the highest level. So just wanting a guy who could do that. I was thinking of Craig Wing as another guy who could do those
Yeah, I had Craig Wing as
multiple
well.
positions, but I ended up with Sean Berrigan just for that reason. He's excelled in a whole heap of positions. So yeah, Berrigan I went for.
Nice research. I didn't know that he covered so many positions like that and had success. No, no, nice pick. Yeah, this is where I had Sonny Bill in the forwards. Similar reasons. The offload. Again, he could pull off a shot. Um, could run the line. He started off in the centres. A bit of a freakish guy. I think the bench is tough because I think you need guys that aren't afraid because you're coming in at the deep end, like aren't afraid to have a crack. They're usually the game's tied up a bit, and I think he's like one of those guys he doesn't get bothered by the occasion too much, like him and old Jared Haynes. So yeah, I got Sonny Bill. He's got the X factor. Like I wouldn't want a forward that's just gonna do hit ups and stuff. I got another forward there coming up, but I wanted one of the forwards to be an X factor guy, and I think he's one of them. If my other forwards, bit buggered and not doing too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Adrian Morley. I would have had to have him on my team similar to you for some reason. The same reasons that you did. He's a scary human being. But I think he's got the record for the fastest ever red card in that game. He got sent off after like 12 seconds or something like that. He just head hide someone straight from the kickoff. So I didn't want to start him just for that reason. He might get head hide someone in, and then he's off straight away. But you got to have him in the team. So yeah, Morley for the same reasons that you touched on earlier is who I've got.
16, I had Paul Gallen. Paul Gallen, I think he's quite a tough guy, strong on defense, very strong. Can cover all the forward positions. He started off as a lock, played second row, and then ended up playing a bit of prop as well.
Mm.
So a bit of leadership there as well.
Yep.
Doesn't take a backward step. Yeah, couldn't go past Paul Gallen.
Yep. Yeah, I went for Shane Webke. I thought he was probably unlucky. He should have gone close to getting a start in this team, but just the props that I had were just too good with Sam Burgess and Petro, who I started with. And you got to have another guy to come in and sub those guys off. So Shane Webke, his record speaks for himself. He's won multiple titles, and he's a Queensland and Australian and Brisbane Bronco great. So yeah, that was sort of a one. I had three front rows and just trying to shuffle the order. That's what I went for.
Yeah, I had Webke as my last guy because I had Petro and Morley a little bit more force. I feel like he's like the guy who just plays hard, runs hard, tackles hard, sort of doesn't say too much. He's 100% type of guy, give it your all type of forward. So I think he would fill in well for one whenever one of those guys comes off. But I think Morley and is a little bit more intimidating and seven receiver. But I think Webke's got more like the effort type of guy for me off the bench. Um, that type of thing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, this is my last guy. I needed to get another back rower in there somewhere, so I've gone for Tellis. Gordon Tellis. I just felt like, yeah, the Raging Bull at his peak, he was in that conversation too to be that best forward in the game. So I like that intimidation as well. I quite like that in a lot of the forwards that I've picked. So yeah, I never liked him as a player, but you've got to respect his game. So yeah, Tellis for me, the Raging Bull.
Yeah, he was hard to. I was. He was hard to leave out. He was a guy. Maybe I let it get to me that because he had that peak, but maybe not so much towards the end of his career. But at his peak, yeah. And he was like the guy. Like I used to buy the league weeks, and I think he got voted. Most feared guy or something like that. I can't remember. Or least you want to get into a scrap with, like quite a few years in a row. So I think having someone like that on your team's pretty handy. Yeah, that intimidation and respect factor. And coach, I don't know. This is pretty. There's only really one coach in there. Nah, Wayne Bennett. Wayne Bennett. Queensland. He won with Broncos, like Raiders, St George. He even helped New Zealand win Australia. Uh, he's he's done it all pretty much.
Yeah, same for me. Wayne Bennett. I thought that was sort of a easy choice. Craig Bellamy is another guy who could probably chuck into the mix there, but these one-off games. Look at the teams that we picked. They don't won't need a lot of coaching, and you just got to get them in the right mentality and get them up for the game, and that's Wayne Bennett's specialty. So he's done it for Queensland. He's done it for all of his titles, and done it for the Kiwis, like you mentioned. So yeah, Wayne Bennett for me too.
Yeah, he doesn't overcoach. I think
Mm,
because I know Bellamy took the New South Wales before and they
Yeah,
didn't do too well. So I think that yell at you type of style in big games with big players, it might not go down too well. But yeah, like you said, just letting the guys play and not overcoaching too much, and especially when you got so much talent, and I think that'll be a better way to go, type of thing.
yep.
Sweet man, that's pretty much it. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Good luck
just
to the aliens.
yeah, yeah, nice. It's good. I was worried that we might have very similar. The teams are going to be exactly the same, but we had quite different teams. I think only Billy Slater, Greg Inglis, and Kim Smith were the ones that we agreed on. We had similar guys in different roles, but those are the only three that we picked in the exact same position. So yeah, it's good to have a mix. It's good to have a mix like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, good luck, aliens. I think we might be safe. We might be safe with our teams. So that's good. I'll just ask you a quick question, man. Is there anyone who do you think's unlucky not to be in this team? Because there's a lot of players that sort of got left out.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I thought Israel Folau, he was
Yeah,
close
yeah.
on the wing. That was my other winger. That was hard to leave out. Tommy Turbo, because he can cover so many positions. But I got this thing where it's hard for me to put guys in who haven't won a championship, even though it's a one-off game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on winning, so because he hasn't quite won yet. Um, yeah, but yeah, Falau, Tommy, even Danny Baderis. I like Danny Baderis.
Yeah.
He was sort of my second hooker. Obviously, I mean, there's not many good hookers managing teams, but yeah, that was me. What about yourself?
Yeah, Israel Folau's one who stood out for me. I really liked Mark Gasnier too. Before he went to rugby union, I thought he was awesome as a centre. So yeah, him and Matt Gidley, I really liked as centres. So yeah, they were probably two guys. It was hard to narrow it down. There's always going to be some guys you miss out, obviously, but yeah, I thought that they were probably two guys that came to mind for me who didn't get mentioned in either of our teams.
Yeah, I thought Gasnier, his footwork, and he was quite silky, man.
Mm,
His
mm.
silky, silky skills. And Falau, I thought his high ball, he just didn't play long enough in the NRL for
Yeah,
me
same as
to
me.
pick him.
They discounted
Yeah,
him for me as well. So yeah. Mm.
all right, man. Thanks, Stace. It was a lot of fun.
No, no worries, no
Chopping it
worries.
up.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again soon. Cheers, mate.
Yeah.